And one of my old buddies, John Stout. Good morning, John. How are you, bud?
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, man? Long time no talk.
Yeah, bud. It's been a while.
Tell us a little bit about this season. Obviously, an outstanding season for the Rams, and you were named New Jersey Coach of the Year. How's that strike you?
It's pretty cool, man. It's a nice feeling to be recognized for all the hard work. But to be honest with you, it's really it should probably be called a coaching staff year award. Because obviously not one person can do all that, and it's it's a lot of guys from the top to the bottom, from rec to the middle school through to high school, that has everything to do with something like this happening for one season.
And your assistant coach Dan Roy, former Wall Township great, he was named assistant coach of the year for the state. So congratulations to him. That's got to be a great thrill for you to see your assistants recognized in that way.
Oh, sure. They've obviously not really had that award around for years when they really probably should have. But it's been recognized. So now that they're doing it, it's even a greater reward for me, actually, to be able to share with them in the same year. Absolutely.
Did you, at the beginning of the season, did you feel like this was a team that could win a state championship as a team? I mean, wrestling is kind of two different seasons. You have that team season, then the individual season. You guys went 18-1, won South Jersey Group 5, and then went on to beat Howell by 3 points to win the overall Group 5 title. What was your feeling at the beginning of the year? Did you feel like you had the right combination of guys to get to this point?
Yeah, everyone's kind of busting my chops about that because when they were asking me at the beginning of the season, I said, I don't know, it could go either way, and I did feel that way. I knew that we had the elements that were necessary to be able to do it. I knew we had the balance. I knew how good each kid was that we had available to us, and I knew what some of the younger guys coming up were we're going to bring to the table. So we needed to plug somebody in. We would be able to do that. But maybe, I don't know, it's not necessarily a flaw of mine, but I feel like we can win every year. I feel like we go into the season expecting to win. So, I thought they had it, but, I think they have it every year. So to be able to only do it twice, in the last 11 years, it's a great feeling, to be honestly, to be able to come in with the group of guys that we had and be able to accomplish what we did.
We're talking with John Stout, head wrestling coach at Southern Regional High School. John, got to ask you this question. How often do guys in the room challenge you to a wrestling match?
Not very often. They're smarter than that.
You look like you can still handle yourself in the room.
Yeah, maybe it's either that or they feel sorry for you, old man. It's one of the two things.
All right. That might be their excuse not to take you on, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm glad they don't, though, because it hurts a lot now.
Another question for you. Who's the most famous 1990 Lacey grad now? Myself, you, or Keith Elias?
I'm going with me, man. I'm going with me.
Yeah? You've usurped Keith Elias, former NFL player?
He's a good guy. If somebody makes it to the NFL, it's hard to beat that accomplishment.
That is true. It's definitely interesting, though. I mean, here you and I are talking, and 25 years ago we were high school seniors, and you never know how your life is going to turn out. But you've done pretty well for yourself there at Southern Regional, and looking back on your career, how cool is it that you're still doing what you're doing, what you love to do, and getting recognized for the efforts you put in and put together a really great program, one of the best in New Jersey.
Yeah, it was always great when you're competing. You don't think about the next part of it. When you're in high school and when you're in wrestling in college and stuff like that, you're not really thinking about coaching or anything like that. But the thing that was probably fortunate for me was when I went to college. I didn't have probably the success that I wanted to or thought I was going to. Due to injuries and things like that.
Right.
But I learned a lot about coaching and what to do in certain circumstances and what not to do in other circumstances. So I think the frustration that I had as an athlete allowed me to become a better coach. That's for sure.
How do you feel like kids today compare to maybe when guys like us were in high school? I hear this a lot from people our age. Kids aren't like they used to be, and I say all the time that's a good thing. I mean, these kids are so socially aware. They're getting out there. They're helping young kids. With the youth programs. They're doing community service. A lot of stuff we didn't really even think about when we were in high school.
Well, we didn't have the same opportunities they did either. I think there's certain parts, certain elements that I think certain people feel kids are a little bit more coddled today, which I think to a certain degree they are. Because the world's a different place than when you and I grew up in it too. It's a scarier place. It's a more dangerous place. With the media and the internet and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of other elements that these kids are exposed to that we were not. But at the same time, these kids are putting in hours and hours more than we did because, they didn't have clubs and they didn't have lifting programs. They didn't have all those things that these kids have now, that these guys are putting in a lot more time than we were. So they're probably a little bit more seasoned than we were. Now, down hard, gritty toughness, I'm going with our generation, of course, but I think
Generation X. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, well, I think every generation, the generation before, I think my father's generation was tougher than ours, and I think his father's was tougher than theirs.
Sure.
Life was, physically more demanding in those times. But, I think these kids are just as good as the kids, during our time and any time. And, and some elements, they're better. I mean, maybe a little bit more trained, obviously. But, I think kids are kids, and they're going to do what we as adults teach them to do. So, ultimately, whether they turn out good or bad, it's on us.
How's your brother making out? People who may not know, your brother Brian was an outstanding wrestler himself, 4-time All-American at Clarion, and his son's doing pretty well too, right?
Yeah, Brian's doing real well. He lives out there in Pittsburgh with his family. That's where his wife's from. His oldest son, Kellen, who was a state champion last year in Pennsylvania. He's just finished up his freshman year at Penn State wrestling there. And then he has 2 other sons in 8th grade. One's in 8th grade and one's in 6th grade. They're both wrestlers. His middle son, Luke, just took second in state for Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And then he just had a young daughter. She's 1 year old.
Oh, nice.
He just had another daughter. Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise for him, but funny conversation, I know.
I was doing a little bit of research on his oldest son, Kellen, and I think he's about a 3.9 GPA. Now, did he get those? Did those brains come from Brian or yourself?
Well, listen. Both of them, my son's about a 4.0 kid
Is he really?
in high school.
Nice.
So yeah, we married smart women.
There you go. That's the key to everything.
Yeah, they didn't come from us. That's for sure.
So what's this whole winter been like for you? I mean, obviously, kind of a dream season in terms of the team accomplishments. You sent a couple of guys over to Boardwalk Hall, and what's it like at the end of the season? Do you get a chance to look back and say, "Man, that was a really good season"?
Yeah, you know what it is really. You're just 1 year is really kind of not different than the other. You just need things to fall in the right places, and the thing I think that made this year so much different for us is that we didn't have those distractions. Well, you have the kids that come in and they do well in school, they stay out of trouble, they come to school on time. We avoided a lot. We avoided major injury, for the year, and that's really more of a feeling of relief by the time you get to Atlantic City, where you're like, wow, man, we were able to get through the season and we didn't have any of those negative distractions, happen, and that's what makes it so special. It just doesn't happen that often. So you really, look back and really appreciate it when it really does go well for you.
Good stuff, John. We got to let you go. We're up against the break, but great catching up with you, and congratulations on a great season.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
All right.
That was John Stout from Southern Regional Wrestling, old classmate of mine. Great to catch up with him, and obviously one of the best seasons in the state this year. They finished up number 2 in the NJ.com poll. Went 18-1, won the state championship. So great to catch up with him.